You're listening to Apashish, a Cree learning podcast.
That's Cree culture. How the kingship structure is defined, even though you don't have your own children,
Right.
because if your nephew and your nieces have children, and your brother and sisters are become grandparents, grandfathers, grandmother, you become a grandfather actually.
So I'm a Mushum.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Apashish, a Cree learning podcast. It is now December. Here's how to say it in Cree.
December, Bawataginashish.
Bawataginashish. Anyway, I just thought I would start off with a quick Cree lesson here. So to start, I just wanted to talk about a couple of updates. So since the last episode, the podcast has been featured in several media outlets. I was interviewed by the team at CBC Sudbury's Up North, and that segment aired on November 7th. And then Timmins Today interviewed me and did a story on it, and that came out on November 15th. And then I wrote a blog on the website about finding my Mushrooms recordings. And then that was published in Wawate News with slight rewrites in their November 21st issue. So it's pretty nice that the podcast is getting out there and that there's interest in this project. And you can find the links to those stories and segments on our website at apashishpodcast.ca. And there's a tab I created called Media. So if you go to that, you can get links to those stories. So thanks to CBC Sudbury, to Timmins Today, and to Wawate News. And the other update is that I created a Substack for the podcast, which is essentially like our newsletter. So our website has an email list that you can sign up for, but it doesn't have a built-in newsletter feature. So I did some research and looked at some of the options, and I went with Substack. And it's an online platform that's mostly used for its newsletter or blog feature. Now it has some multimedia features and a social media component where it has a feed. But mainly I just want a place where I can write up a newsletter or a blog, which I can then email directly to anyone who signs up for this email list. So there's no need to create an account. Simply enter your email to subscribe, and you'll receive all our updates and newsletters directly to your email inbox. And if you sign up, you can receive updates like when episodes are released, and each time I write a new post, which are pretty much like blogs or short essays. And some topics can include like detailed thoughts on my learning that I didn't include in the episode, or reviews and takeaways from books and resources that I'm using, or maybe behind the scenes details like how we produce each episode. And I'll continue to post and share content on the website blog, and also use that to share any news as well as on social media. But subscribing would be the best way to receive the updates directly. So you can just go to our website, and you'll see the sign-in option on our homepage. And you can also go to apashishpodcast.substack.com. So on to my learning update. In the last episode, I talked about rediscovering the book atalohkana, nesta, tipacimowina, or Cree Legends and Narratives from the west coast of James Bay. And I think even me just saying that title in Cree right now gives you a hint on the progress that I've been making, because I struggled to say that in the last episode. To recap, the book has 68 stories and legends told by Cree speakers, and is written in both Cree and English. And the recordings can be found online at spokencree.org. So I downloaded most of the stories by the Swampy Cree speakers, because there's also the Moose Cree speakers, which is the L dialect. and the Saskatchewan Cree speakers, which has a mixed inninew dialect. And my family spoke Swampy Cree, so I focused on those. And I had read somewhere online, and I forget where, that we should focus on pronunciation when we're learning a new language. So I started listening to these stories and repeating them. I would go on walks and do my best to repeat. But I also noticed that they spoke really fast. And I don't know if it's just because they're just such fast talkers, or perhaps because these were recorded on cassette tapes. In the conversion process, it sped up. But yeah, it was pretty fast. And here's my attempt to read and follow along with the first story. It's called The Arrival of People Here on Earth at the Very Beginning, and it's told by Simeon Scott.
Ego tipacimowina.
Ego get the tipacimowina. Atalohkana. Atalohkana. Sokik. Sokik. Itatano. No. Kutesokik.
We know the Benoe.
We know the Benoe. Inninew. Kutai Kutchik. Beagwa. Kitapachamo. Beagwa. Kitapachamo. Beag. Kashanoan. Etatanokatek. Etatanokate. Omaskin. Canada. Kashitayak. Kashitayak. And that goes on for another 15 minutes or so. And yeah, you can hear how challenging it was at that time. And I had slowed down that recording of the Cree speaker, Simeon Scott, by that time, because he's speaking so fast, like I mentioned. So I took this recording, and I had this road trip planned for myself. I went down to Toronto, I went to Montreal and Ottawa, and then back home. And on the different legs of the trip, I would at least at some point take this recording plus another one that I had slowed down, listen to them, and do the same thing. Just repeat, listen and repeat as best I could. You know what would happen after a while when I did this each time is that my mouth would get sore. Like after 15 minutes of doing this, of just, speaking Cree. Now, I had jobs at a call centers where I'm talking all day and my mouth is sore at the end, but that's a different kind of sore. It's like my mouth is dry. And this one, it's more like it's sore from kind of almost like a workout or something, because I guess it's different from talking in English, whereas now my tongue and other parts of my vocal tract, like the soft palate and the pharynx, are moving differently. So it's like a workout for my vocal tract. And I've been reading about linguistics a little bit, and I'll get into that, but that's kind of how I know that physical, technical part. And after the trip, when I got home, what I would do, usually in the evening, I would sit down and write out a section of this story and repeat it. And I've done a few sections so far. In this particular story, it's like 10 paragraphs, and I've done about 3 of them so far. So here's how I sound reading it now. Igo kitapachimoyan tanakhan itatanokatisichik, wanawil, tapinui, inninew, kaitachik. Beagwa, kitapachimobeak, shino, itatanokatik, omaski, Canada, kashitayak. Monowanakan, chitawataweskach. Kapashishkwao, omaski. Saguch, kaitoik, inninew, kitakaski. Espimiknete. Ego danta kashipimatisichik inninew kaitachikweskach. Beego maga kishigak gichen beek inninew. Ipimutat iwichuyat maga owega maganan anishichik buguk gyabich. Ego kapetagak Petago sinuil, Petago siwinu, Igamaga, Wapamachik, Anihi, Gayamanji, Winahana, Gayamaha Gawak, Igamaga, Iwamachik, Wapamachik, Ego Gaitachik, Gaitan. Gaisto Tanawa na Katakaski. Maga Gaitwak. So that's how I can do it now. Still some struggles here and there, but definitely better than before. And in terms of what I'm saying, like I've tried to do like a literal translation. Like I have the Cree written in Roman orthography, and I wrote it in my notebook, and then I tried to write the English underneath, and based on what I know and what I've had to look up through online dictionaries, because the English is on the opposite side of the page. It's not like right under it. And I found that it is hard to translate like literally. So basically, what I'm saying is, or what Simeon Scott is saying as he's telling the story is, now then I shall tell a story, a legend which those who are themselves called the people tell about themselves. Once a certain old person told a story, a legend of this land, Canada, where we are. There was nobody here long ago. This land was empty. To be sure, there were people, another people, up yonder. There it was, there lived long ago those who are called the people. One day it happened that a certain person was walking along in the company of his wife, there still being only two of them. Then they heard the sound of a voice without seeing that person who was talking. They were spoken to, and still they didn't see him. Then he said to them, "Do you want to go to another land?" And they said yes. So even reading that, like it doesn't have the flow right like in English, and I'm sure the translators did their best to do like a literal interpretation, as you will, although they couldn't translate literally, but there's still something about it. And I'm sure in Cree it just makes sense and it sounds better. Anyway. And what I've also been doing is I also read that index cards or flashcards are another method of learning. So I bought some index cards and using terms in that booklet that Angela gave me from episode 1. The booklet's called Nesta, Omushkegowuk. I speak conversational Cree, and I wrote down some terms. Like I had to refresh on the days of the week and the months and the season. So wrote those down, English on one side, Cree on the other side, and just memorized them. The months are still a challenge right now, but yeah, I feel I have a pretty good grasp. And yeah, so that's what I've been up to in terms of learning for the past few weeks, past month or so. And also in the past month, I've started to think about what are some better strategies I can try to learn that I can incorporate into my learning. So I've started to find resources on what are some ways I can learn another language. And I also wanted to learn more about linguistics and how I can incorporate that or complement my learning in some way. So first, before that road trip I mentioned, I downloaded the audiobook, Becoming Fluent, How Cognitive Science Can Help Adults Learn a Foreign Language by Richard Roberts and Roger Cruz. I couldn't find a hard copy on hand, so I signed up for Audible my first time using an audiobook, and I've listened to about 6 of the 8 chapters so far, and it didn't really offer a lot of practical advice in terms of how to learn. Mind you, I didn't finish the book, but to that point, there wasn't a lot of practical advice. It was more kind of motivational, and that it's trying to say, no, as an adult, you have advantages that a kid doesn't have, even though kids technically might have it easier. But as an adult, you have more tools and resources to learn language. Like, it was kind of coddling, I felt, in that sense, like trying to inspire you as an adult to learn another language. So it was mostly overarching and broad strategies, but not a lot of practical advice from what I listened to. But then again, to be fair, probably an audiobook is not the best form for this. Ideally, it would be something I could refer back to maybe or see the outlines. But anyway, yeah, wasn't that great for me. But I did hear about this other book called Fluent Forever, How to Learn Any Language Fast and Never Forget by Gabriel Weiner, who apparently can speak 8 languages comfortably, including Russian, Hungarian, and Japanese. And in this book, he gives actual practical strategies and systems on ways to learn another language, including the use of flashcards, which is where I think that one advice came from that I found online. And I'm still only about 50 pages into this book, but yeah, it's pretty interesting so far, and I'm going to incorporate some of those tools and strategies into my learning. And I mentioned I'm getting this interest into linguistics. On my trip, I found this book in the U.S. bookstore called How Language Works, How Babies Babble, Words Change Meaning, and Languages Live or Die. And it's by David Clare, who's apparently this famous linguist. And it's basically an introduction to linguistics, the study of language. So talks a bit about phonetics, which is like the physical part of how we create language, like our vocal tract. Phonology, which is like the actual speech sounds. Morphology, which is like the word structure, the sounds within the word. Syntax, which is how words are arranged, how we create sentences. Semantics, which is about like the meaning of the words. And then there's pragmatics, which is the meaning of the words in a larger societal context. So those are kind of like the subfields within linguistics. So it's really gives me a broad basic overview, but it gives me some idea of this field of study. And it's pretty interesting, especially like the syntax part and how that relates to Cree. So, for example, if we take the sentence, Mona nesta wena well geskendamak, which interpretation would be, they too did not know. But if you translate it literally, it's like Mona nesta wena well geskendamak. So, know as well, they knew. So the negative comes first, Mona nesta as well. And wena well means they. Geskendamak, knew, like plural. So know as well, they knew. But to translate to English, we'd have to put it as they too did not know. So that's what I see anyway in my basic understanding of linguistics and syntax. That's how the sentence works in this case. So it'll be pretty interesting. And there's some other things in the story that I've been working on and translating with Sumi and Scott. So yeah, that's what I've been up to lately in my learning journey, and we'll see how that goes. So with that, let's get to my guest for this episode, who is Greg Spence. Greg Spence is a community organizer, educator, and musician based in Moose Factory. Originally from Fort Albany, Greg has decades of experience working as a Cree translator and teacher and continues to be consulted about the Cree language and culture. He founded and coordinated Cree Fest, an annual cultural festival hosted in different Mushkegowuk communities every summer for more than 20 years. Greg also plays guitar and bass, and over the years has performed live across the region. I first met Greg at Cree Fest in around 2007. If you remember the story about how I learned the phrase apashishbugo nananimun, it was for that trip I was going up to Atawapskat to cover Cree Fest that was taking place in that community that year. And that's where I first met Greg. And unfortunately, we didn't get around to talking about Cree Fest, which he had co-founded. But we covered a lot in this interview, from his early years in Fort Albany to how he learned to play guitar and bass, his work in Cree translation, and how learners should go about learning the language. He also mentions his nephew, Jules Spence. If you're from the Bay Area, you probably know who he is. He's not only the lead guitarist and singer for the rock band The Swamp Rockers, but he's also a broadcaster at Wawate Radio, where he broadcasts in Cree to the James Bay community. So we make reference to him a couple of times in the interview. Here's my conversation with Greg Spence. Hey, Wachia, Greg. Thanks so much for joining me here. So did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Greg Spence, originally from Fort Albany. I was born there. I'm the only one that was born in a hospital there. The rest of my siblings were born on the land. I live here in Moose Factory now. I moved here about 35 years ago or so, and I've been here ever since.
So how many siblings do you have?
I have one sister that's still living in Timmins, and I have 3 brothers. And a couple of them are living in Timmins, and one living in Fort Albany, and the rest have passed on.
Oh, okay.
Six brothers altogether, and 2 sisters. One of them passed away a couple of years ago.
Okay. And are you the youngest?
I'm the youngest, yeah. I'm the final product.
Oh, okay. And who are your parents?
My father was Luke Spence, and my mother was Maggie. My father originated from Fort Albany, and my mother originated from Atawapskat. She's you ever heard of she was a coastal person. There was a group of people that lived on the coast of James Bay, and they just lived on the coastal areas. They trapped and they lived there. But my father was an inlander because he grew up about 140 miles inland of Fort Albany.
See, that's interesting because we tend to see our people as going out on the trapline in the winter, then coming out to the coast in the summer. But there's people that stayed along the coast kind of year round, I guess.
That's right. There were quite a few families that stayed on the coast throughout the year, and then other families migrated, back and forth from the inland. They probably did spend a lot of time inland more than the coastal. So, but they did migrate. They used to leave around the end of August, maybe the first week of September, to go to the trapline for the winter, and they would come back after the breakup, like in May or June, to spend maybe a couple of months at that particular community. Not only in Albany, but as well, there used to be a community of people in Atawapskat. They used to congregate in the summertime. They would go back, and some of those people stayed there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, what was it like for you growing up in Fort Albany?
Well, historically, as we know, most of us, 90% of us, I guess, or more, entered the residential school. But before that, we, myself and probably a whole bunch of other people my age and a little older, we would go back and forth with our parents back on the land again, like I said, in September or in August, and we would spend we would spend living on the land for till maybe sometimes in December. Sometimes we didn't come back. Some people did, and we would stay there all year round till in June and come back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did that till we were maybe 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, and then we would go back and forth in the summertime to stay in the community in Albany. And then after we entered the residential school.
Right. And when did your family permanently settle in the community?
I think it was probably I was 6 years old. I was born in 1953. Probably 1959 or 1960. We my mother and my father actually went back to the land the first or second year that I was in residential school, but because of the isolation and the loneliness with the mother and the father, my mother decided to stay back, and my father, returned to the land to trap, because that was his livelihood, right? That was his income, living from the fur and all that, and but probably, and then my father, then my brothers got most of my brothers trapped already anyway, and they would go back and forth on the land to trap, make a living. And then things started slowing down, and my father decided to stay behind as well, and so was my brothers as well.
Mm-hmm. And how many years did you attend?
I attended residential school 7 years. At the age of 6, we went to live in Kapuskasing for a year when I was in grade 6 or 7, I believe, for a year in Kapuskasing.
Mm-hmm.
Because my brother and my brother-in-law and my nieces were living in Kapuskasing for a particular year, and we went to live with them for a year. And we came back to Fort Albany a year later. So all in all, 7 years in residential school in Fort Albany.
Mm-hmm. And were you able to speak Cree and learn Cree properly during that time?
Oh yes, yeah. I think Fort Albany was a different. There's a different story to Fort Albany, and of course you hear the other stories. We spoke Cree probably about, let's say, 80% of the time in the school, because we spoke Cree outside, we spoke Cree in the playrooms, we spoke Cree in our dining rooms, and any other time that the only time we didn't speak Cree is when we went to school in our classrooms at 8 o'clock in the morning or something, till 12, and then again 1 to 4 kind of thing. I don't recall if we were forced not to speak it, but as always, we were disciplined. Like, we were taught English, and that's the only time we were able to practice our English, interacting with the teachers. I don't recall ever being told not to speak Cree, but I think we were trained to be quiet and do our work and speak English then. But any other time we spoke Cree.
So what happened after going to school at residential school? Where did you go to high school?
Graduated in grade 8. We were all sent to different urban centers like Timmins, Kapuskasing, Timmins and Kirkland Lake. That's where we went home. A bunch of us from at that particular school went to Kirkland Lake for grade 9, and so on. Some of the students stayed there till they graduated, and some transferred, which I did. I did a couple of years in Kirkland Lake, and I transferred to other high schools from there to North Bay, and from North Bay to Ottawa. And I graduated in Ottawa, and I actually graduated and completed high school in Ottawa. And I went as far as grade 13, but I didn't make it because I was short 1 credit.
Oh.
And it was biology. Biology, I could have done better in biology, but things were kind of different back then,
Right. And so what did you do after you graduated?
I didn't want to work at that particular time because most students that coming out of high school back then didn't really want to go to college or university directly, because at that particular time there was a trend that most young people wanted to work, go into the workforce, and that's what I did. I went from there. I went home and started working. I was invited to go to University of Western Ontario, I believe, and for one particular summer. So, but I didn't go any further than that, and I didn't actually I didn't want to go to university or college that soon. So I went back home to work for a couple of years, and ironically, I worked for at the residential school for 2 years in Fort Albany.
Doing what?
Being a childcare worker, looking after kids, looking after the children.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. For 2 years before, and then 2 years later, they wanted to shut it down or transfer the supervisors to different provinces or whatever. But I didn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed.
Oh wow, interesting. When was that you had that job at the school?
That would be. I graduated in 1974, and then I 1975, 76. That's when I had that job working at the residential school.
Oh, okay. And I kind of know you as well as being a bass player. I remember my late dad remembering you guys and forming the band. I guess you just called yourselves the Spence Band. So, how did you first get into music?
We were the Spence Band like later on when we got older.
Oh, okay.
When we were teenagers, I guess Paul, my nephew Paul, and his brother Jules, we lived together. My parents, them up there. We lived in the same house, so we were always in the same, hanging around together, living together. We actually started at the residential school. There was always instruments around, and there was always a guitar around. Kids used to play. The boys used to play, pass the guitar around, and that's where we started. We were just messing around one day in one of the classrooms because of messing around, and Jules didn't start out with the guitar. I think he started out with the bongos.
Oh.
I started out with the guitar, and my friend Mike Carpenter, who's passed away a couple of years now, he was also a guitar player. So he played guitar. I played guitar as well. And my other cousin Pascal Spence was, I believe he was a singer or something. I can't believe. And we were fooling around the classroom, and we wanted to call ourselves the Rocking Jam Sessions because we saw this ad in the back of a comic, and they were selling how to read music or something, and instruments and stuff like that. So we wanted to call ourselves the Rocking Jam Sessions because we saw it in the comic. And Sister Superior heard us messing around in the classroom, and she came in, and she kind of encouraged us. She liked what we were doing, so we started to form a little band. But she didn't like that name that we had, the Rocking Jam Sessions, and she said, "What about putting your names together, Carpenter?" With my Carpenter, and the Spences, Jules and Paul. Not Paul. Paul wasn't there yet. He says, "Put the names together," and we became the Car Spensters. for a short period of time, the Car Spensters, and we performed. We performed every time there was an event or a concert. We played, and then we created our own little songs or whatever. One was called the Mexican thing, and then Jules was playing the bongos, and I kind of created a little riff, kind of Mexican feel to it, and we performed. And Jules had a little sombrero, and one of those, and we performed that Mexican thing in that particular way. And we had other tunes that we kind of made up,
right?
And then we performed in front of the students at that time. So that's how we started. And then we grew older, and then Paul got into the picture. Paul Spence, who's my nephew, Jules' brother.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to rehearse outside. There was a building outside the school, and they would let us use those rooms that they gave us, picked up the key at the office, and we would just play and practice every evening. Just something to do. We nothing else to do in the summertime, so we had access to that particular room, and that's how the Spence Band grew. My brother Joseph Spence was really into Elvis Presley, and he used to dress like Elvis Presley. He was a pretend Elvis. And he had the dark shades and everything. He had that I don't know what they call it now. And he made his own clothes, and he used to sing Elvis songs, and so that became part of the act. We started rehearsing him, and at that time there was Simeon Tabis. He was a real good country singer. He played country music, so we started rehearsing with him. And we had our own songs that we played that are more like a rock vein. Santana, 10 Years After, and some other songs. So we formed a little kind of a review, I would guess, we call it. And we just rehearsed every night. And then for some reason, they must have heard about us, or we decided to come to Moosonee to play. So we had a whole show together. The first hour, there was Simeon Tabis and country music. And the middle section was Elvis Presley, my brother Joe. And at the end of the set, the last set was the Spence Band playing rock and roll music or whatever. And that's how we started. And the rest is history.
And how did you start playing bass?
Oh, like almost most stories, nobody really wanted to play bass, right? Everybody else played drums and guitars, but I was always interested in the bass because we used to see these movies in our community hall about these bands or Motown music, music coming in from Chicago or whatever. And I always liked the look of the bass, and I used to like the sound of it. So there was no one wanted to play bass, and they said, "Why don't you pick up the bass and start? We need a bass player kind of in the group." And I did, and I ordered a bass from Simpson Sears, and that's where I got my first bass guitar. And then that was it. That was the makeup of the band. Paul came in to play drums. He started playing drums, and Jules picked up the guitar, the electric guitar. He was getting really good at it, playing the 6-string. And then finally we ordered the electric guitar, and Jules sang and so on. So there was actually just 3 of us. That's his rhythm section. And we backed up Simeon Tabis with the country music, and my brother Joe with the Elvis part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we toured the coast as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We the first time we went, we came to Moosonee. There was a talent night, and we ended up there, and then we played that night, and wow, that was. They haven't heard anybody from up north. They thought we were just bush, and then people just trapped or anything like that. We had a little group band together because we used to hear all this music from the radio stations in Chicago, New York, and so we were kind of we were connected to the music back there. And my father, we used to have these old radios that my father used to listen to 4 o'clock in the morning. We used to hear old country music and rock music and so on and so forth. So that's where we got hearing all that kind of music and on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
A small little town like Albany, yeah.
Oh, cool. And you guys, I know last year you guys played together as a Spence Band. Was that, how often do you guys get together to jam again?
Well, I think last summer was the first for a long time to start playing again. And we've always talked about it, but because Jules is living in Timmins and we were kind of separated in terms of distance, so we never get around to playing. But we had a chance to play last summer, and we one of the bands we opened up for Los Lobos, and that's one of the highlights of our highlights of our music career, I guess. opening up for Los Lobos in Moose Factory here.
Yeah.
And once in a while, I get around to play with Jules with the Swamp Rockers and Timmins. If the bass player, Corson, isn't available, I play with him. I play with them, or go to Timmins or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they're pretty active. Before COVID, they're pretty active and playing in the clubs. And then sometimes when I'm living here, when I used to play with the fiddle players and the other musicians in town.
Oh, okay. And eventually you would go on to have some jobs related to the Cree language. You're kind of an expert in a way because of your experience in your various roles, I guess you would say. So how did you first start becoming involved with that type of work? What was your first job related to working with Cree?
Yes. After my 2 years in Albany working as a childcare worker at the residential school, I decided to leave Fort Albany and go live in Timmins, which I did. And my brother Alex Spence was heading the cultural center back then in Timmins, which was part of the Treaty 9 organization building at that time. The Treaty 9 organization was already in full force, and in that particular organization, they had the cultural center. When I moved to Timmins, and like I said, the culture center was now. There was an opening for to train as a translator, so I applied for that, and I got the position to train as a Cree translator, and I was lucky that I got the position. And my sister Helen and what I called my aunt Annabella Goulet were both already working there, working with the language. And I started off as a trainee because I didn't know my syllabics at that time, because we weren't educated or trained to learn our syllabics in school at the residential school. It was mostly English and learn how to read and write English, but no syllabics at that time. When I got that position in Timmins, I started learning how to read and write syllabics, cold turkey. Not exactly cold turkey, but working with my sister Helen and working with Annabella Goulet. And then I started translating the documents or papers. I would sit there and I would read and translate the documents in Cree, and they would write it out in syllabics. That's what we did. We worked together, all three of us. And I started learning how to read syllabics then. And every day I would give him my read through it and the corrections and all that. And along with my translations, I started writing syllabics and translating the documents at the same time. It was like, that's the way I did it. And then I had Helen and Annabella making their corrections and so on and so forth. I did that for a whole year. I got better at it. And a year later, I became the coordinator for the translation unit.
Oh.
We developed a translation unit in Timmins at the Cultural Center.
Yeah.
And that's where I started. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And how long were you there?
I was there for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
As the coordinator for the language program. It became a language program after we started doing other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
After, besides the translate. And I was also interpreting for the clients downtown for welfare assistance and so forth, and doctor visits and so on. Became part of that work, doing that.
Right.
Interpreting. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you find that work? Like, is it difficult at times to translate?
The way we were working, I was working, like I said, with Helen and Annabella. I would go through the text, the paragraphs, and I would translate the text. And with their help and with their knowledge and fluency, they would put it together. They would come up with a good translation and making all the edits and all that. And that's how we did it. And then so we worked together that way for I don't know how many years. I was there for 8 years, and and that was it. And then we developed the language that way. Some people mostly working in Cree, working with documents and letters and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And I know in 1996 you co-authored or authored this report called the Omushkego Cree Syllabic Project. So I took a read of that, and there's some few interesting things that stood out. So apparently there used to be an R dialect in our region, which is now non-existent. Well, what can you tell me about that?
Well, the only thing I remember, the R dialect, what that means is like the R characters are very prominent. It's something like a re-rura in the syllabic chart. Re-rura.
Right.
The R sound, right? Re-rura. There's an example. We say Nina in the end dialect, Nina. They would say Nira. And if we say Kina for the end dialect, they would say Kira. So the R character or sound was pretty prominent in that dialect. It's gone extinct for some reason. I guess there was a small group of people that spoke like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just that's just interesting. That's the thing that stood out to me. And there's mention in there. So I guess you're with this report, you're trying to put together this panel, trying to standardize, I guess at least the syllabics. And it's mentioned like there's no standardized manual or guide on like the grammar or kind of no dictionary. Is that still the case today?
Yes, because we had that when we had that conference meeting with the translators, interpreters, and speakers for the N and L dialects. Actually, the N dialect, mostly the N dialect speakers. The provincial government, wanted us to standardize the syllabic system, meaning that there would only be one standard way of writing, I guess, and either to do away with the N dialect character, like what they call endings, what are just mostly consonants, like the small S sound, the M sound, and you can see it in the syllabic chart. There's a difference between the Eastern style of writing and the Western style of writing. The Western style of writing is Roman Catholic, and you see all the Roman Catholic literature, that's the style that they use. The Eastern style is the Anglican versions of the syllabics. So, do you know what I'm talking about? If you look at the syllabic chart,
there's little those little accents at the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the only difference. And the government wanted us to do away with the either or, the N or the L dialect characters, but that didn't happen because a lot back then people wanted to keep. It was a tradition for them to write that particular style, to have that particular style. The N dialect characters, what they call endings, or the Anglican version, but it didn't work out. People said no, we would like to keep it that way. So we don't have a standardized version of writing.
Mm-hmm.
There's still two versions of it.
Right.
The Roman Catholic or the Anglican versions of. But what's happening right now, especially with the Moose Cree, they developed their own syllabic version now. They have a font as well, and they adopted different characters now, like say for the dot to indicate the short and long vowels, the and e kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
So they have their own now, and I think it just happened a couple of years ago. But we don't have that. We haven't really kind of updated our version of the syllabics,
Mm-hmm.
the syllabics writing.
Yeah, and they even have their own dictionary, and I think they're doing a book launch right now for their latest version. Is there an official or any kind of dictionary for like Swampy Cree?
Well, I don't know if you can call it official, but there is a. Oh, let's put it this way: there is a dictionary that was created way back, early 1900s or something. It's red, and it's a dictionary, but it has most of the words that we use in the N dialect, and so is the L dialect. It's all in there. but there is no Swampy Cree dialect. We were working on one, but that because of time and funding, we couldn't do it. We couldn't finish it. But Mushkegowuk was able to do it because they're getting supported by their van office or chief and council to do that project. So that's why they have the dictionary. They know if you're a speaker, Swampy Cree speaker, you can figure it out. It's all the same words. Mm-hmm. It's just the difference between the syllabic style of writing and the difference of saying different words. Mm-hmm. A mixture of the L dialect and the N dialect. That's also they're both together. So it's not totally different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you look at it.
What do you know about how Cree is taught in schools like nowadays or in the past couple of decades? Because I remember I had Cree class in Moosonee, and I finished elementary school in 1998. So that's what I remember. But from what your understanding, how has it been taught in schools?
Well, back in the 70s, I guess, when Cree was started to be taught in schools, I think we made a mistake. We made a mistake of having to teaching the children the way English is taught. In English, the nouns, house, chair, floor, the nouns, and that was done initially. Cree is action oriented, like it's a verb. Verbs are really important. Like I walk, you walk, they walk, we're all walking, kind of thing. I sit, dappin.
Right.
Namasnake, and I am writing. Nouns like table and cup. It's secondary. So I know one linguist that we used to work with, he used to say that Cree is one big verb. It's action. Mm-hmm. Things are moving all the time. That's what Cree is. It describes things and so on and so forth. But the English language is the house is red. So the important thing is house. And the descriptive part is secondary, right? Is red. It's the verb is not that important. The noun is important. But I think we made a mistake of doing that initially. And mm-hmm. And now Cree is taught, but then again, it hasn't been updated. So many issues with that. There's not enough money. There's not enough teachers, and then we need to have trained teachers. We need to train them, and because everything's there. We've done a lot of work for the last 30, 40 years. That with the education departments in Mushkegowuk and as well with our work, everything is there. We have a font that we use for touch typing syllabics, and we've been working on updating it. And using we use it in type, even used in Messenger,
right?
Writing to each other. And at one point, we used to use it for emailing, because Apple had this. Of course, that Apple had different computers, and then as opposed to PC, we were using the Apple computer for a number of years back in the 70s and in the 80s, but not too many people were using Apple. They were using PC. So we had to switch over to PC. And PC is, I think Apple was more up to date, or it was working for the language much better. We were able to write to each other and syllabics on the email, but now we can't do that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's a way. As far as I know, there's only one alphabet that they use in our PCs that we use. I'm not sure. But it would be nice if we could use it, if we could select our font on the email platform so we could write to each other in syllabics. But I know it can be done in Messenger now because some company or somebody developed the syllabic font. And I used it, but it's not complete.
Right.
I see people writing syllabics on Facebook.
Okay.
So the opportunities are there. Mm-hmm. It's just like we're not doing enough.
How important is syllabics to learn Cree as opposed to Roman orthography?
The only thing I can think of is identity, I guess. Identity. Mm-hmm. As Cree people, we have our own style of writing. And historically, there's debates on this. There's a guy named Evans that created the syllabics. And apparently he was a Methodist preacher, minister. and he was kind of a linguist that came to and started living with the communities back in Manitoba or somewhere else. So he created the syllabic system based on the shorthand. The shorthand versions that people used to use.
Okay.
And that's how he created syllabics. And then he came up with these characters, the syllabic characters, and developed the syllabic system. What people are saying, he didn't exactly invent the syllabics or the writing system. He saw people's way of communications on the land using carving characters. Like if somebody would come to a fireplace, he was able to read messages on the fireplace, or even a stick. The individual would carve out little characters or something. I've been here for 3 days, and I'm going in the southern direction, kind of thing. And that's the debate that people are having. Evans didn't exactly invent the syllabic system. He took that and combined it with the shorthand versions in the syllabic system that we do have. So that's the important part.
Oh, interesting.
We do use the Roman, what they call the Roman orthography, using the English letters, and it's a standard way of writing it, and that could be done. It's simple, and you can adapt to it. I know the Inuits have been using that for a long time. Some of the communities don't use syllabics; they use English letters to write. They could read it really quickly, just like anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
And then and the Inuits as well use the syllabics, and they've developed their own versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so can we. I don't know, different ways of doing it.
No, I just remember and I talked about this with a past guest, a fellow learner, about how, in school, it's kind of ingrained in us to A, E, U, Te, Ti, Tu, Ta, and, going through all the syllabics. And
yeah.
I find when I'm trying to learn too, like it's easier for me to do the Roman orthography right now, just because like I'm bypassing that part where I have to sound it out and try to remember. Maybe I have to refresh my syllabic learning. But anyway, right now it's easier for me to do the Roman orthography and just kind of phonetic spelling.
Yeah.
But how do you think it should be taught in schools right now? You mentioned like because the language is different, it's action oriented. Instead of this noun-based learning that I went through as well, learning like Mackie, G-man, these kind of basic noun terms. Like, so how should it be taught in schools or for anyone that wants to learn?
Well, the difference between syllabic writing and then using the phonetics, meaning the letters, in syllabics, it's shorter. It's shorter.
Right.
And you would read as G-man, 2 characters and a little ending, G-man. With the letters, you would how would you write out CHEEMAN?
Mm-hmm.
G-man, right? Okay. So that's longer than the actual 2 characters G-man, right?
Right.
So it would be in terms of space on text, using less space as you would with using the letters.
Mm-hmm.
And, if there's a word, a long word, and it would be extremely long for somebody to actually read it, as opposed to syllabics where it's shorter, maybe half of it, the length of that particular word. So that's one be easy for someone to read and write syllabics.
Right.
But then again, like you said, like, it'll be easier for people that actually are to know the English language now and spell the English with letters and learn. There's a lot of literature in syllabics, so you would need to know if you're doing research or something, or you would need to know the syllabic system.
Right.
And of course, it's different. It's unique. I always say that if you were to learn your language, and we have so many dialects, if you were to be taught the different dialects in school, can you imagine what you can do for yourself? You can go work in Mushkegowuk and work with the people. You could go work out in Ojibwe communities and learn their languages and stuff in school, like you would learn Ojibwe, and like they do in Europe. Most people can speak 4 different languages, because they're kind of the same family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can talk to each other, communicate each other. And I think we have to. You could have that opportunity instead of just speaking only one dialect.
Mm-hmm.
there's so many opportunities you can have. You could work in Mushkegowuk if you work the language. Or, it's not much difference. Maybe just the sounds, or it's the same language. So I think we're kind of held back in that way.
Right.
We don't have, they're not giving us the opportunity to learn different dialects and languages, which is the same family anyway.
Okay. I have couple of specific questions about Cree. I was always kind of confused. Well, I feel like I have a better understanding now. But like the three terms to kind of refer to us as people, I guess, or humans, are what's the difference between anishnaabe? Because I know I tend to associate that word between like with the Ojibwe, but I know it exists in our language too, from my understanding anyway. And then there's the word inninew, and then we have the word Omushkego. Kind of three different ways of kind of identifying ourselves, I guess. Can you break down the difference?
Let's take a look at Omushkego. It speaks of a regent, a particular region.
Okay.
And in our area, there's swamps. In a swamp, muskeg, the word muskeg is easier. Our region is mostly muskeg. We got to be known as the Muskegon people, I guess, for easier. Omushkego people. Mm-hmm. And because we live in that particular region where there's all kinds of bogs and swamps and everything, and we're known as the Swamp Cree people or the swampy people, and that's pretty understandable. Now, anishnaabe is an Ojibwe word meaning person, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not particularly where that word came from. I think it has to do with something anisi, meaning it's natural without any other, like anisiti. I hope I'm correct on this. Anisiti means it's just tea, no milk and sugar. Anisiti, just straight tea. Mm-hmm. Anisiti, okay. So it means it's just a straight and natural, something you drink with, eh? Then anishnaabe is somebody that exists or born on the land, on the natural environment. I think that's my understanding of that Ojibwe word anishnaabe.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's look at inninew, eh? Mm-hmm. My theory. I'll give you my theory. Okay. That particular sound all right, it comes from the word ita, there. Ita,
yeah,
there. Okay.
Ita, yeah.
Ita, there, or here. The second sound is ne, okay? When you say me, in Cree, what do you say?
Nina?
Right.
Nina.
Okay. Nina, okay? Nina, me. Okay. And inninew is kind of a grammatical section, an inflection that puts it together. Listen to the word inninew, here, ne, me, and then so.
Oh.
You're a being that exists here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's my theory anyway.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. You're a being. You're a person or a being that exists, and you're inninew. Generally, a person. Mm-hmm. Okay, a person inninew, and then you say inninew is people. Okay, I think the Inuits have it right. Initially, they were we call them Eskimo. Okay, Eskimo. People that eat raw fish, fish, right? That's what we call it. Mm-hmm. And then that became a general term for Eskimo, that word Eskimo in English, and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay.
And historically, back they changed it from Eskimo to Inuit, which means people in their language, right? Can you hear the difference? In Innu and in Inuit, they're the same thing. They're exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why they did it.
Yeah.
That's why they did it. Mm-hmm. Inninew is a person or people. Mushkegowuk are people that inhabit a particular region. In our case, the swampy areas in James Bay. and from here as far as back as far as Alberta, northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba. They're all swampy creeks because the region is mostly swampy.
Right. And I wanted to ask about the words nuhum and guhum and nuhum. So I don't know. I heard this theory of somebody saying like we should be saying nuhum when we're talking to our grandmother. So that's Cree for grandmother. So nuhum, I've been taught means like my grandmother, like literal, and guhum just kind of means grandmother in general. Is that fair to say? Like that is just saying guhum okay? We're talking to our grandmother, or
yes and no, I guess. Saying nochum is correct grammatically. Nochum, my grandmother. Nochum. Gochum, you're saying is your grandmother.
Right. Okay? Yeah, literally it means your grandmother. Right.
Your grandmother, that's what it means literally. Now, I guess it would be correct to say gochum because you're including everybody. Like in that, it's my grandmother. That means that's your grandmother as well.
Right.
So when people say gochum, it's generally understood that that's your grandmother, and so is everybody else's grandmother. I think that's okay. But people forget that if you want to be grammatically correct, you would say nochum and gochum as well, like your grandmother.
Right.
Okay? I think that's quite understandable, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's acceptable. It's acceptable on paper. It doesn't look right on paper. When you're reading it, gochum. At the same time, that person is actually saying in his or her mind, my grandmother. So in fact, he or she should be saying nochum, my grandmother.
Right.
It gets a little confusing.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. Yeah.
And can I add something here?
Sure.
You have nieces and nephews that have children?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, you're a grandfather, even though you don't have any children. I'm assuming you don't have any children.
No, I don't have any. No.
Okay, you're a grandfather.
Oh, okay.
That's Cree. That's Cree culture. That's Cree.
Yeah.
How the kingship structure is defined. Even though you don't have your own flesh and blood brothers, children,
right?
Because of your nephew and your nieces have children, and your brother and sisters are become grandparents, grandfathers, grandmother. You become a grandfather actually because you're.
So I'm a mushum.
You're yeah. That's right. Is that a revelation?
Well, my brother was talking about that. Like, so he was holding his granddaughter and kind of introducing me. I guess he said, "Anakatak mushum." Like, there's your.
Say it again.
Anakatak mushum. Like he was talking to the granddaughter and kind of introducing, saying, like, "There's your other mushum," right? Is that what he means? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
But in fact, he should be saying kimushum if he was grammatic. Kimushum, eh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mushum,
yeah, he probably said that.
Yeah. We've made that particular word mushum. I think we created that word mushum. We should be nimushum or kimushum, but they dropped the two the indicators, I guess. Yeah. The prefix, yeah. They shorten it, right? But we understand it.
Oh, okay.
We understand it, yeah. So
right.
Yeah, we fragmenting the language that way.
With it being December, we have the winter solstice coming up. Is there anything in our culture related to the winter solstice?
Not particularly the way I was brought up. There was never anything that I know much about it. The solstice, to find out about it, just grew up in understanding how nature works and what science tells you. With the winter solstice, like you have a certain number of hours of darkness and a certain number of hours of daylight. Okay. And the solstice is the sun is in the December 21st or 22nd. It depends on what's going on in the universe. The sun will have reached a particular point towards the, in this area, it's the southeast area. And it stops, it seems like it stops there for 2-3 days. It's stationary, and then it goes back. It returns towards the west, where there's a certain amount of darkness of night and a certain amount of daylight during the day. That would be the winter solstice. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
It goes back,
Okay.
and it goes back from there. It goes back west again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But we don't have. I don't know if we that I know of a word for it to describe that. But we know about it.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference between the astrological. That's a good word. Astrological seasons. The astrological seasons is only 4 seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Summer, fall, winter, and spring. That's astronomical, actually. Astronomical seasons,
Right.
which we're pretty much aware of that.
Yeah.
But we have 6.
Yeah. Okay.
We're going through what they call the Mushkegowuk. Okay.
Yeah.
There's 2 moon cycles every 2 moons. Every 2 months, there's a cycle happening every 2 months. Right now it's December.
Mm-hmm.
It's not winter yet. It's still Mushkegowuk. Mushkegowuk. Well, yeah, Mushkegowuk. I've been talking to elders about that. What does that mean exactly? What does that mean? Nobody has. Some people, some elders have said it talks about snow in there. That particular word, snow. I don't know. I'm not sure. But when I think about it, Mushkegowuk, I think they might have dropped a couple of sounds or characters in that particular word. I think it was probably historically the word tipacimowina. Tipacimowina is night, right?
Right.
Tipacimowina is night. Yeah. Bimbe, it refers to the word motion, moving.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time of the year, we're going back. It's like transitioning into darkness. I think that's my theory. That's what it's talking about.
Oh, okay.
We're transitioning into darkness, but when it starts going back, it's at the solstice in this time, in this month on the 21st or 22nd.
Yeah.
That's when it starts going back again. The daylight is going to get longer.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it means, right? So we're going to come out of that after we transition into darkness. We're going to come out of it. Right now, the trees are actually sleeping. They're not active. They're not drinking water. They're actually sleeping. They're taking a rest. Nature is taking a rest. When that goes back again, it's going to start changing and so on. And we're not into winter yet. Winter is January and February.
Okay.
Which means Pipun.
Pipun. Yeah.
Then it talks about the snow. Pipun.
Mispun, right?
Pipun. Okay, this one. And then anyway, I can go on and on about this whole thing. About we would be talking here for another 2 or 3 hours. But that's just a little snippet of it.
So, what advice do you have for Cree learners that want to learn Cree? What's the best way to go about learning?
From my experience teaching Cree, I think we have to forget a few things about yourself. I know when I taught some local people here, they have a hard time learning Cree because they remember being laughed at.
Right.
They remember being, you're not saying that right. You're not saying that word right, or you're not a good speaker. You're not fluent. That type of negative stuff is not good for an individual. So if you can go over that and relax and give yourself the time to learn it and learn it, and I think that's the only way. It's the only way.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about all this.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You can learn syllabics in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks you can learn syllabics. You can type syllabics in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You will be fluent in 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years, you'll be fluent. And if you live in a community and listen to the people, you'll get it. You'll be a fluent speaker.
Oh, okay.
if you're given the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Listen to Wawa too. There's the background screaming here.
Yeah. So listen to Wawate radio. So listen to Jules.
Listen to Jules. Listen to people speaking it.
Yeah.
And give yourself the time to do it. Don't be afraid. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be laughed at. and just speak it. Try to speak it.
Yeah.
And go in the bush. Go listen to nature. That's where it came from. Yeah.
Right.
That's where our language came from.
Okay, that sounds great, Greg. Well, thanks so much for the advice. I've been trying so I've been listening to some audio recordings that I can find of speakers and just repeating.
Yeah.
And not focusing so much of what the meaning is, but just trying to get the sound right, the pronunciation.
Yeah.
So, and I've been writing it down too and trying to say it. So, say it on my own, but also listen to these recordings. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm starting to use flashcards. With and I am using the just general English phonetic or Roman orthography right now.
Right.
But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So just trying to get the pronunciation down, and but I see what you mean though about the language being action oriented, because when I'm listening, it's like I don't know how much I'm just starting to learn linguistics, and it sounds like you know a little bit too. You work with linguists, but like the syntax is a little bit different. It's difficult to translate word for word.
No. Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't work word for word. Yeah.
Maybe try and leave the English out as much as possible, but focus on the language itself, the Cree. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always thought that language is just a sound and emotion come out of it. And you're a musician, You're a musician.
Yeah.
There's if you hit the note C, do re mi fa sol la ti do. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what it is. Like those 7 sounds. And then there's the octave.
Oh.
You put C, E, G together, it's a harmony,
Right.
You could hear harmony. And if you flatten the E, is it E flat? It becomes a minor, it has a different sound. And you play a G, you're happy, as opposed to A flat.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. It's just music, language is just a sound. It's all put together. And of course, the mathematics.
Right.
That's not a different thing. Yeah? So that's what it is. Nothing any different than that. If you like to listen to music, it has a certain notes put together and makes you happy, makes you feel blue, and that kind of stuff. That's what it is. And when I hear somebody speaking in Cree, like I live in Mushkegowuk, I go to the hospital, I hear people speaking in Cree, I feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
When I speak to someone speaking in Cree, when I meet them on the road or somewhere, I'm okay. I'm done. I feel okay.
So that was me talking with Greg Spence. Had some interesting insights for sure. Like how he explained how it's being taught in schools. Like I mentioned in past episodes, how we learn a lot of nouns, and we don't really learn how to build sentences. When I was in Cree class back in Moosonee, and Greg mentions that that's not an ideal way to teach Cree because the language is action-oriented. Like if we take a look at this sentence from the story that I was saying earlier, Beagwa kitapacimowina. So the translation would be, like to be understandable in English, once a certain old person told a story. But if you translate it literally, it's once told a story, one old man. So the subject being the old man, comes later, whereas the first key word is the action word, telling a story. So it's not always like that, but I feel like that's fairly common in Cree, from my understanding so far anyway. And Greg mentioned that it is useful to learn syllabics. I mentioned in past episodes how I felt this was an extra barrier in learning and reading Cree. But he makes some good points in that there's less characters if you're writing out a Cree word, Cree sentence. If you use Roman orthography, you have to use more characters to create the sounds, whereas in syllabics, one syllabic represents a certain sound, and it's it would take less characters to create a word or sentence. And also there's more content, and especially historical content in literature in Cree that are written in syllabics. So makes a good point there. So I'm starting to consider whether I should relearn it. I'll think about that. He also mentioned that it takes 3 to 5 years to be fluent, which is a little discouraging considering the goal I set in the first episode. But the word fluent, means something to different people, right? And he's what we call an expert. So maybe he's thinking about 3 to 5 years to get to his level, whereas for it to be conversational could be less. But I found that interesting. And I really liked what he said about comparing Cree to music and the rhythm and melody, because there is something about the way I hear Cree speakers over the years, like my parents and my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, elders. Like there's a musical quality to it. Like if we take that story that I read earlier, and I don't think he doesn't say it like this, but like this is how I would remember hearing Cree speakers like in my family or on Wawate radio. Mana wana how chitawa taweskach. Gibishikwa omaski. Sagochkai towakin wakatakaski. Spimignete. Ego data kaishipimatischik in wakai chikweskach. So something like that. Like there's a rhythm and a flow to it, and I think that's what Greg is alluding to when he said that. And I totally get what he means. Like there's that rhythm and that melody to it. It's pretty neat, and it's something that I also like love hearing, and something that I would miss when I lived in Thunder Bay or when I lived in Toronto. But anyways, I really appreciated that conversation with Greg and his thoughts on the language. So my plan for the next few weeks is to continue to go through this Cree story. I'm going to continue to read Fluent Forever, that book with strategies on how to learn languages, and to build my flashcard collection. I'm going to continue to read about linguistics whenever I can. And I've ordered a couple of books as well, and we'll see if I have time for those. But if I have time, I'll give you an update on the next episode. So that's it for now. You can, again, a reminder to sign up for our Substack. Don't forget to leave a review on our website and on the various podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. Send us a message on our website, apashishpodcast.ca, or email us at apashish@gmail.com. And that's it for this episode. Jimmy, for listening. Hey, get Apashish, a Cree learning podcast, is produced and hosted by Lenny Carpenter. Additional editing by Tyler Anjikaneb. Logo design by Robin Kyoki. Goose Call provided by my niece, Harlow Carpenter. Music by Lenny Carpenter. Have any questions, feedback, or resources to share? Submit a message on our website, apashishpodcast.ca, or email us at apashish@gmail.com. Visit our website to listen to past episodes, view guest bios, and access Cree learning resources. Apashish is supported by the Indigenous Screen Office. Greater Yellow Lake recording by Thomas McGarrian. Sharp-tailed grouse recording by Andrew Spencer. These and other wildlife recordings are accessible at www.zeno-canto.org. Miigwech for listening.